Hey, gang, welcome back to another episode of Momentum Podcast. I'm your host, Moya Mamora. And like I said, on this podcast, I like to share with you ideas around living purposefully, living with impact, ideas on spirituality, and on wealth creation. Here's another one on wealth creation. So, today I want to break down the basics of real estate investment. I cannot tell you the number of people that I meet consistently who are like, hey man, Moyo, like, yeah, I've heard you're into real estate. Man, look, I've been thinking about getting into real estate for a few years. I really want to get into that. Like, can you help me? Can you teach me? Can you mentor me? Well, yes is the answer. I would love to be happy to help you, teach you, tell you what I'm thinking about, what I've done, how I've screwed up personally. I've had my own fair share. I'm telling you, like, when I think about my life and the things that have happened in this short life of mine, well, I guess I went through all those experiences so I can share them on here at Momentum. All right, so let's talk about real estate. Now, I am the number one fan of real estate investing, specifically multifamily real estate, wherever you are. I think everyone should have real estate in their personal portfolio. So I'll tell you my real estate journey. It really started many years ago. Look, from reading this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, fantastic book. I mean, say what you want to say about Robert Kiyosaki, yada, yada, yada. That book was a huge value add to the world. And I read that book many years ago and it really got me going. I was like, yeah, definitely. I want to do real estate. That's how I got interested in things, investing, finance, and so on and so forth. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to do this. It makes all the sense in the world. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get rich. Well, maybe. I don't know. Not quite. But I shared this in a previous video. The thing is, for this to work, you have to get away from this mindset of I need to get rich quick and get rich now. The math to getting rich and to creating wealth, it takes time. It requires discipline. It requires consistency. See, when I invest in real estate, I'm playing the long game. When I first started, fresh, my mindset was I need to be rich. I want to invest in this thing so I can be rich in 2 years. By the way, when I started investing in real estate in 2007, that was the madness that was going on. I cannot tell you. The Great Recession, the housing market crash and collapse, all of that stuff, I saw that happen firsthand. I tell you, I'd see situations where you get into a contract today, you find another person, you flip the deal, you sign both, you never take possession of the house, but for more than like 5 minutes, and you flip it, you make a couple, tens of thousands of dollars, and you walk away. Or you go in, you try to buy like $1 million home, you don't have like the credit or the income to support it. You just state that you make, whatever, you have these assets. There are all these no documentation loans. You get the loan, didn't matter what the interest rate was, but you could turn around and flip and sell that property for about $1.2 million or something like that. This insanity was going on everywhere. And if you were me back then, my mindset was like, I have to get in on this action. But I was too much of a wuss to play some of those games, even though I had this like one broker who was aggressively pushing me into one of these schemes. And I'm just like, look, it's not my thing. I can't do it. So I bought my first property in a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. Didn't go down well. And there's a lesson in everything I'm about to share with you. I bought another property. Then I had my personal residence, my condo, and lost my job, got foreclosed on all these properties. Now, part of the reasons why I'm sharing this personal story with you is if you know what it means to have a foreclosure on your credit report, it means that buying a house, because that stuff stays on your credit for 7 years. So it means that buying a house then becomes excruciatingly painful. There are some lenders who are like, no foreclosures. They don't even want to see it, right? Or you have a situation where it's been there for a long time and then I wanted to buy another property. I was quoted an interest rate that was about 400 basis points above like what the market was because I had a foreclosure. So I had that foreclosure, actually not one, I had two foreclosures on my record, right? Because I lost my job, couldn't afford it, tenants weren't paying, yada, yada, yada. Learned my lessons, continue to learn my lessons, and all of that comes into what I'm about to share with you today on real estate investing. Real estate investing or real estate is the oldest known investment in human history. Never going out of style. Real estate is finite. They're not making any more of it, right? Populations continue to increase, so therefore land becomes more and more valuable as the population increases. So it makes sense that everyone ought to have some allocation of real estate in your personal portfolio. I advocate for it. You should be thinking about it. But the question, which is why you're watching today, is, well, how do I get in on real estate? Well, like, what do I do? Where do I start? And I like the house hack, meaning creatively figuring out a way to get into the system without having to cough out a lot of money, right? And that's possible for everyone. So if I were to start all over again and do this all over again at house hack, I say to people, your very first home purchase, as much as it's dependent on you, try to think about it as an income producing real estate asset. I totally understand. You finished college, you've lived like a rough life, ramen noodles every night, sleeping on someone's couch. Now you're making some money. You're like, you know what? I've always wanted to live in downtown Chicago. I want to buy that condo downtown Chicago. I get that. Trust me, I totally understand that. But you always have to stretch and think about this like a real estate investment, because there are loan programs and buying opportunities for first-time home buyers that you don't get if you're an outright investor, which in the current rate environment, you're having to put about 25 to 30% down to actually make a deal work. But if you're a home buyer and you're an owner occupant in that situation, you don't have to put that much money. I always advocate to put a little bit more money down, but you can actually buy homes for as low as 3.5% down or 5% down. You can actually get a program like that. So here's why real estate makes sense. If you look at the data, conservatively speaking, because it's a hard asset, real estate investments would track with inflation. Land for sure tracks with inflation. If it's improved land, meaning there's a building on it or there's something on it, it can actually, and in most cases, it grows faster than inflation, which is good. So here's basic math. If you assume 3% inflation and you buy a piece of real estate, right? So real estate by definition is land and anything connected to it. So you buy that. The average mortgage is about 30 years, right? Just walk with me here for math. So you buy a piece of property, it's $100,000. Say you buy it $90,000 loan on it, and you have a tenant in there who's paying down the loan, right? So it's income producing. You can actually rent this asset out. Pays it down over a 30-year period. You don't get any cash flow from it, but there's just enough to cover all your expenses, like pay the taxes, pay the insurance, pay the utilities. Nothing else comes to you. All you put down was 10 grand to buy this $100,000 property. A tenant is renting from you over a 30-year period, pays it down. Guess what? You got a $100,000 property for $10,000 and someone paid it off for you. It's worth, assuming no increase, that's already 10 times your money over a 30-year period. But here's the beauty. If real estate tracks with inflation at a minimum at 3%, that property is worth 2.5 times what you paid for it. So that $100,000 property is now worth $250,000 after 30 years. And all you put down was $10,000. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a 25 times return on a $10,000 investment in 30 years. Imagine your ability to rinse and repeat this. Now, here's what my challenge is. Sometimes I'm talking to people about this and then they roll their eyes. They're like, oh yeah, 30 years, I want to make money right now. I just gave you the most basic math. It could grow at 4%. It could grow at an average of 5%. It could do way better than that. But this is assuming it just simply tracks with inflation. That's number one. Number two, I see people who roll their eyes at this, and I'm like, look at people who've been working for 30 years of their lives. How many of them actually have like multiple real estate assets? Or don't you wish your parents had like multiple real estate assets? Like, wouldn't your life be different? So why don't you do something different for your own kids, for like the next generation after you? That like, so when I talk about wealth creation, a lot of times it's that mindset that limits people. It's like, well, I'm not going to do anything. 30 years is too long. I'm looking for something that can double my money like in 3 years, 4 years. That's like the mindset a lot of people have. And they forget this is simple. Like the average person can get into this. So just imagine you're a person and you only had the opportunity every 3 to 5 years to buy one of these types of assets. Just like one new property every 3 to 5 years. And you have a 30-year working career, right? So that means in the lifespan of your career, maybe you'd buy, 5 to 10 properties. If that's all you did and you create like this, watch my last video, this infrastructure that's generating, these assets. I mean, I don't know, like, let's see, what's the median home price in the US? Let's check that right now. Median home price in the US. So simple search, it's about $400,000 is the median home price in the US. So you have a job, you're working and you're able to go out and maybe every 3 to 5 years you can buy like one of these $400,000 homes, right? And you buy 5 of those or 10 of those, right? So you're able in the course of a 30-year period to invest $2 to $4 million in real estate. And just imagine, right, if you're able to stagger it and do the math, and let's say, you bought all of them at some midpoint, right? 15 years, right? Is sort of like the midpoint. 30 years from today, those $4 million in assets are worth $10 million, zero debt on it. Imagine you being able to take that and hand that over to your kids. Imagine you being able to take that, put it in some sort of entity and have it generate income and say, I want to use this to pay for school fees for children, for folks who can't afford it, to pay for hospital bills for people who can't afford it. Like there's so many things that you can do with it. So I'm helping you see what the possibilities are and why you have to always think long-term with real estate. Anyways, what I was talking about initially was the house hacking principle, where you have to then treat your first home purchase as an investment. What that means, because it's an investment, it has to be an asset. It has to be something that's generating cash and putting cash in your pocket. So if you want to buy that downtown Chicago condo, good for you. But I'd recommend maybe get a 2-bedroom, get a 3-bedroom, get roommates that you can put in there. Maybe that costs you $500,000-$600,000. All right. Get a 2-3 bedroom, put a 10, rent out the other 2 bedrooms. Yeah, like, no, I don't like roommates. I want to, again, this is not about what you like. This is about you trying to build up a real estate portfolio, right? So you're thinking about this as an investment. So those 2 people, they pay rent to you, you pay down your mortgage. So you're not necessarily living for free because homes are super expensive right now, but you're actually subsidizing your living expenses. That is the definition of an investment. You do that for 1 year, you rent out the entire place. You go to the next condo, you do the same thing. You go to the third one. You do this like every 1 or 2 years. At the end of a 5-year period, you already have 3 investment assets. That's like super simple. That's a very simple way to do it. Because otherwise, if you wanted to buy an investment property, you would have to come up with about 20%. So 20% on $600,000, that's about $120,000. But if you are doing this as an owner-occupant, maybe all you need is about 5%. So you can come up with 30 grand and you have this asset, you can rent it out, and that's your $600,000 condo. But I actually don't like condos as an investment asset, but personally, I'd say find like a 2-unit property somewhere or a single family home somewhere, right? Wherever it is that you are. You understand your market. Real estate is always local. Oh, by the way, this is something else. I meet a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I've heard like real estate in Houston is very nice. Like, what do you think about buying property down there? I'm like, well, do you live in Houston? No. Do you know somebody that lives in Houston? Like, yeah, I know somebody that lives. Okay, but how often do you go to Houston? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to invest outside of your locale, except you have somebody who is managing the asset for you, who really understands that location and can do a good job for you. Otherwise, invest where you know. Chicago is like a unique place, for example. Neighborhoods change, right? Block by block, things change, right? So if you don't have that perspective in Chicago, it's very difficult for you to come as an outsider. And because some real estate agent told you, like, yeah, this is a nice area, this is a nice building, you buy it, but you don't have context. You don't know what's happening. I see people, for example, who buy properties and they're like, oh, it's very close to downtown. I'm like, what? Like, that's nowhere close to downtown. Yeah, like on the map, like if you're coming from like a Houston, for example, 20-minute drive is nothing, right? So you're like, yeah, like, 20 minutes, that's not far. But in Chicago, like, and you see a trip, it's 15 minutes to downtown. You're like, oh yeah, that's nice. It's just 15 minutes to downtown. That could mean a lot of different things depending on what direction you're driving from. But you wouldn't know that except you live in Chicago. Another example is I see people who are like, oh yeah, I know this property, it's very close to the Obama Library. I'm like, okay, do you know where the Obama Library is at? Maybe they do, maybe they don't know where the library is at. But that could mean a number of different things. It could be 1 block away from the Obama Library. It could be a mile away from the Obama Library. Those are two completely different things in the city of Chicago. And without knowing that, without living here, you actually don't have that context. So I tell people, you're best buying your real estate assets in your local market. Forget what anybody says about your market, like, oh, it's trash, it's this, it's this. The fact that you live there and there are other people who live there, it tells me that that's a place where people want to live. So what you need to be doing is you need to be looking for an asset where people want to live. I'm speaking right now for multifamily real estate assets. So you're looking for an asset where people want to live. The other thing that's important as you're thinking about this as an investment asset is that your rental income is effectively dependent on the quality of the tenants that you have. So you have to do a very good job screening your tenants to make sure that you get the right tenants in the apartment, and make sure that you are providing a quality asset so that you can get quality tenants coming in, right? So you always have to think about these things and you run the numbers, you do the math. Number one, what is the potential rent that I can get here? It's not always going to be 100% rented. Depending on the neighborhood, find out, talk to brokers, talk to people who are living around there and find out how long does it take for you to rent an apartment here. On average, that's going to be your loss. And then you back out all your expenses and that's your net cash flow on the property. But the goal here is this: you want to buy the asset, you want to have someone who's paying down the mortgage, and you want to hold it for a long, L-O-N-G, long time. You want to hold it for a long time. I've gotten to the place in my real estate investing right now where I don't care what happens in the first 2 to 3 years of my investment. I actually don't even look at it. I almost like go in not expecting to make money in the first 3 years. So if I ever had to sell a property in 3 years, I know I'm selling at a loss. But what happens, and I've seen this, I own several properties right now in the city of Chicago. But what I see right now is that by year 4, year 5, definitely year 6 and 7, oh my goodness. Yeah, those things then start printing money for you. Like, because all of a sudden neighborhoods get super established in that time period. Your processes get established in that time period. You have like a regular cadence, and your mortgage is fixed, but you can keep increasing rents. The cash flow all of a sudden is better. That's how I think about real estate investment assets. So for you, this is about you. How do you get started? Your first purchase, think about it as an investment. Talk to a real estate agent wherever you're at and just have them guide you. Don't let them push you into buying a property because their incentives are different. Understand the neighborhoods that you're going into. Don't just buy a property because it's cheap. understand the neighborhoods that you're going into and say, is this where I want to own a property? Do I have, do I understand how this particular market works? Is this where I want to be deploying my capital? It's your money, so you can choose where you want to deploy that capital. But just make sure you understand that very clearly, right? Because then you're offering something in the market, you're going to get your tenants, right? And if it's like doing your first deal as an investment asset, you probably want to live there as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like your dream home location, but let it be someplace where you're like, you know what, this resonates with me. I can actually live here for a year, for 2 years, and I'd be fine with it. And that's what you do. You buy that first home using one of the first time home buyer programs, and make sure there's like an additional room, better still, an additional apartment. So like a 2-unit property is something that happens in Chicago. If you're in Houston, maybe it's not 2 units, maybe it's like single family homes, right? I know people who would buy like a town home or a single family home, and then they move on to the next one, right? Maybe that's like the thing in your particular neighborhood. But Chicago, yeah, 2 units a thing, 3 unit properties, that's another thing that happens here. It just depends on your neighborhood. So understand your locale, understand what types of properties do people rent. That's the ultimate question you're trying to answer. Do people like to rent in condos? Yeah, but like you have like HOA fees, you have like condo restrictions, like so on and so forth. The thing about buying condos oftentimes is condos are a product that are made for people who are looking for something beyond just the utility of a space to live in, right? There are other intangibles that are associated with like owning condos, like the prestige of being in a high-rise building, the fact that it's like facing the lake or it's facing the park, or like it has like skyline views. Like, how do you place dollar value on all those different things? Now, you can't necessarily recoup all of that in rent, because sometimes tenants just don't care. It's like, it's easy to get to work from here. It's close to the train station from here. It's close to the bus station from here. That works for me, right? You do have some people every now and then who are like, yeah, I wanna live in a downtown condo that has like a beautiful view, that has like all these amenities and whatnot. But the reality is, like, if you're buying a condo that you purchased, I want to say for the most part, just based off of what I've seen, you're paying a little bit extra and you're not necessarily getting all the benefits, or you're not able to recoup a lot of those from rent. So that's why I don't necessarily advocate for people using condos as an investment, because the HOAs as well, they just kind of eat up all your profit, right? But find something else, right, where people want to live. You can buy that, stay in it for a year, for 2 years, move out of it. You bought it for like a very low down payment. You got into it. And I just love the math, right? At 3%, so let me show you. Like, I just think it's important for us to understand what I'm talking about. At 5%, right? For example, at 5%, and maybe you don't like my 30 years, right? Maybe you use 15 years. It would double in 15 years. You're almost, and I think that that's actually what the history has been, is that real estate assets in the US double every about 10 to 15 years in value. That's like an amazing thing. That's why you should have multiple real estate assets in your portfolio. For sure, you should be buying these things up. You should be adding them to your portfolio. Buy for your spouse, your partner, buy for your kids, buy for your uncle, Just like the point is just like keep buying. Just keep buying. Borrow money to buy real estate. Like, I don't know, like flip pizzas just so you get the extra cash to buy real estate. The point is, you should be absolutely buying real estate. Doubles every 10 to 15 years. Even better if you have somebody else who's paying down that mortgage for you. You're creating wealth in a way that is the age-old way, one of the most secure ways to actually create wealth. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that. I know I kind of threw out a lot of things. A lot of it was really from my personal experience. I live, breathe, eat, dream real estate. So I was just sharing from my heart. I would encourage you to watch this video again. Ask questions in the comments. If you do have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. Let me know your thoughts. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends because I think it would be beneficial for them. Until next time, I'm your host, Moyo Mamora, and this is the Momentum Podcast. See y'all later. Bye.